Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, I'm speaking with Brett Campbell, lead singer and guitarist for American doom metal band Pallbearer. Enjoy. Hold on, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing good, man.
It's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the Metal Meltdown.
Oh, thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.
I gotta say, this is pretty cool for me, because I've been following Pallbearer for years. I remember when you guys came here with At the Gates and Converge back in, 2014. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. That was a really fun tour. Really enjoyed ourselves on that one.
That was a show I took one of my buddies to, and he was not really familiar with a lot of hard rock, punk, or metal at all. And he kind of came out of that going like, wow, At the Gates didn't sound anything like Pallbearer, and they didn't sound anything like Converge, and they didn't sound anything like whoever. It was a really cool night.
Yeah, that was a blast. There was a lot of diversity on that lineup. I think Valenfire was the other band on that bill.
Yes, that was the Death Doom band with the guy from Paradise Lost. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. Well, anyway, let's get right into it. You got a brand new album, Forgotten Days. It's been out for about 2 months now. It's the most emotionally charged thing I think I've ever heard from you guys. What does Forgotten Days mean to you emotionally?
Well, a lot, shoot, that's an interesting question. Well, we put a lot of ourselves into all of our music, I'd say. So, that's a kind of a complicated question to answer, but I'd say that some of the concerns, thematically, I guess, are about like the passage of time and, personal change and just like kind of change in general. The world around you changing as you get older and you see the world through different eyes, how things tend to, kind of exhibit different emotional colors as you change as a person. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of concerned with like metamorphosis and memory and kind of how those tie into personal identity.
I think one thing I really got out of the record emotionally was how it dealt with isolation and mental illness and loneliness, especially on the lead single. I think it kind of tapped into the anxiety and the anguish that we're all kind of feeling right now.
It's kind of ironic that ended up kind of being the case for some people, because obviously we couldn't have, anticipated the situation that we're all in now.
Oh no, not even close. I'd like to talk to whoever could anticipate it.
I know, Miss Cleo, but I think she died. Need a psychic. A hotline psychic.
That's how you make the next Pallbearer record. You have a full-blown psychic on the record telling you what's coming next.
Yeah, I wonder what John Edwards is up to nowadays. Probably grifting that a lot of money somewhere.
I don't know. We don't have I can't think of a lot of psychics here in Toronto. It's not a big thing, so I can't help you out there.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Probably. I mean, I'm sure if I spent 10 minutes on Google, I could find somebody who was like, oh yeah, I predicted that my girlfriend would have a baby boy, and she did. But it's like, all right, 1 in 2 chance. That doesn't...
You got a 50% chance of getting that one right, so I guess okay odds.
Do you think that Forgotten Days, the album as a whole, is more poignant or important with most of the world still living in quarantine?
I don't know, man. It's hard to say how important something is or isn't. We just hope that people connect to our music, whatever the situation of the world at large, may be. Hopefully people will still connect with it. If they connect with it now, hopefully they will still connect with it when, hopefully the world gets back to some semblance of what it was.
God, here's
There's no
hoping.
telling it'll ever be what it was, nobody knows, but we just, all you can hope is that it has staying power, our music has staying power. That's the hope.
I feel like it will, especially because granted, I can only speak for myself, I guess, but I find every time I come back to any Pallbearer record, I'm finding more and more to get out of it, emotionally, musically, atmospherically. Like even when I first listened to Foundations of Burden and such, I wasn't really that into doom metal at the time. But as I kept coming back to it, I was kind of like, all right, I guess I do like this, and I'm hearing more and more. I'm hearing more progressive influences. I'm hearing more of the emotion that you guys are putting into it.
Yeah, we kind of, we hope that our music is like, and I think we kind of understand it to be something that you get more out of the more you listen to it. Like, we kind of write albums in sort of like an old school way. So much of music now is just kind of like commodified, and it's meant to be something that kind of like just exists in the background of life,
Mm-hmm.
But our music is kind of intended to be focused on, like, listened to actively. So, ideally, like, the more familiar you are with it, or the listener is with it, the more you can, you'll find the little subtle pieces that we put in there.
A while back, I read another interview, I believe it was with The Pit, that the album was intended to be played in a large, stadium arena setting. It was an album intended to be played live. Obviously, with COVID-19 going the way it is, I don't know for sure if anyone can play a show anytime soon. How does this change Forgotten Days, if it changes it at all?
Well, it'd be pretty incredible if we were ever playing any of our songs in an arena, but it was definitely like focused on a live setting. Like, the songs were kind of composed to have like a kind of energy that it would, translate well to, the live setting. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating a little, because I think that like people would really appreciate the songs maybe more if they could see how they, translate live, since that's the way they were written,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they were intended for. And obviously, like, the record isn't like an afterthought or anything, but when we were writing the songs, we intentionally focused on songs that we thought would work really well live, because after touring for Heartless for 2 years, which is very layered. That material is very layered, very dense, very technical. It was really fun to play that stuff live, but also a challenge. And sometimes it seemed like the musicianship aspect of it was something that really worked for us when we were writing it, and it works on the record, but we were never really sure how well some of that came across live, because
Mm-hmm.
it was less focused on like immediacy, I suppose, and that can be a good thing. I enjoy music like that, but it really depends on the crowd, and we felt like a lot of our more straightforward songs get the crowd going more. I guess they seem to be into it. So, and I think even beyond that, we were, I think, just interested in like approaching our craft from a different angle. Like, we had kind of exhausted the like hyper technicality avenue. I think by the end of Heartless, and then the kind of EPs and singles and stuff that followed, and I think we were kind of interested in doing something a little more direct, which I think inherently would work in a live setting. Like, we tried to write our heaviest stuff, and I don't know. I think we got pretty close. And I hope one day we'll be able to play these songs live. There's no timeline there. Who knows what live music will be like after all this is said and done, or will or won't be like, I guess. But
Yeah, it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say. There's, I think the only concert, at least where I am, I mean, whatever other parts of the world are doing, I'm in Toronto, the greater southern Ontario. The only concert I've seen in this area was like for a local band, like an album release show. Only 50 people were allowed in the venue. And maybe that works fine for some of the really small bands that are just kind of trying to get their name out there. But, you know, when you get to the really big acts that want to fill stadiums, it's just not going to be plausible.
I know it sucks, man. We've been like clawing our way up for, since 2008. I guess it's when we started playing shows in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
We've been like clawing our way up from, I guess, the underground Little Rock. A place that no one has ever pays any attention to, and now it seems like the future of live music is pretty in question, I suppose. It seems like ethically dangerous to put large groups of people in a space.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks because that's such a huge. I think metal in particular thrives in like a crowded, sweaty, packed room. That's where it works the best. So you can like feel the energy and have it flow between the crowd and the bands. I think that's like a really thing, and it's like maybe the worst situation to try to create that right now. Like I would not feel comfortable even trying to put that many people in a room together. It seems irresponsible, but I want to get back to that as soon as we can. It would be a really sad world without live music, in that way. I know there's lots of bands are doing like the live stream stuff and like ticketed live streams, and who knows what live music will look like in 10 years. Maybe people will be doing like, maybe that stuff will be more sophisticated, and there's like like virtual reality stuff. Maybe there'll be like augmented reality concerts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's cool. I think that's a cool idea, but you'll never be able to replace the power of a huge PA and like the energy of seeing a band play live and all the like unpredictable things that can happen in a live setting. I think that's really special.
Absolutely. There's really nothing quite like that live concert experience. There are some bands that I think have done a pretty good job. Like Code Orange has that Twitch series where they're basically doing exclusive shows every week. Obituary did their live album concert series, which was really cool. They played Cause of Death in its entirety. But even so, it's not the same as going to a concert, feeling the weight of those riffs firsthand.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I thought the Code Orange stuff is like truly next level. Like their production value and everything was really cool.
Mm-hmm. You guys are scheduled to perform at Damnation Festival in next year with like Pig Destroyer and Bell Witch and a bunch of other bands. How confident are you that will actually happen?
About as confident as I would be in saying whether or not a child is going to be a boy or a girl. I feel
fair enough.
Our friend psychic on that one. I don't know. I feel like it's a 50-50 chance, man. I don't know. I really, really hope that we can do it. It's an amazing lineup, and we played Damnation 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a really fun time. But I mean, I'm hopeful, but I'm not really under any kind of like illusions that it's absolutely going to happen. So far, practically every show that's been announced has just kind of been a pipe dream. They're all like inevitably canceled, but I hope it happens. It's late enough in the year where it's a possibility. It's got a non-zero chance of happening. So I'm trying to be hopeful about that.
At the very least, hopefully they can find some kind of safe way to work around it instead of just putting like 1,000 people in a club and making them sweat and breathe on top of each other.
The way Damnation was set up, at least, I don't know if it's in the same venue, but when we played, it's at this like complex. So there's like several. It's all indoors, and there's like several like stages. There's several rooms that are all connected by like hallways and stuff. So it's all indoors, which to me, I mean, there's people just milling around and stuff. It seems pretty dangerous. I mean, if it was held right now, I'd be like, nah. But maybe a year from now. I mean, it's like September or something. So
yeah,
maybe the vaccines are supposed to be, or some vaccines are supposed to be out like in the next month or so. So I don't know if between January or February and like September or whenever it is, the things will be safe enough to do. Because I mean, personally, like aside from the ethical implications of getting 1 million, or 1,000 people in a room, I don't want to get it. So,
I don't want to get it either. I'm not risking my life to see napalm death or something. Nah.
Yeah, great, but yeah, it's not worth dying over.
No, and it's a shame because the few bands that have been able to play live have almost consistently been the ones that are just like, who cares? We just want to play a live show. So
do I. I'd like to continue to play live shows like for a while and not like, I mean, shit, especially from my perspective. I mean, yeah, as a singer, like I don't really need to incur like long-term lung damage. I've already done that enough just from living a lifestyle like an idiot. But yeah, I don't really, and the like cognitive issues and stuff you get. I'm already an idiot. I don't need any other regard.
I definitely feel that. As far as the going back to the album itself, I've heard some people argue that Forgotten Days is your most refined album, your most accessible album. Some have even said it's doom metal's answer to the Black Album. How do you feel about a statement like that?
I'd say sure. I mean that seems it's certainly refined. As to whether or not it's the Black Album is, I mean, obviously it's not a cultural like sensation like that that album was, but I mean the world is quite a different place than it was in 1990 or 91, whenever that came out. I don't know. I'd say it's definitely our most refined album. I'd say it has, little bits and pieces of everything that we've kind of done previously, like our first 3 albums, and we kind of like stirred it all up and made it into one kind of a cohesive thing. But as to being the doom metal Black Album, who knows, man. Also, that could be a good or bad thing depending on who you ask.
I guess that's true too, because there are still plenty of people that are just like, nah, Black Album, they sold out. It's the worst album ever. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Ew, ballad. Ew, can't have that.
Yeah, all our songs are ballads, so they can't get us with that one.
They're all very emotional, so joke's on you.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting, though, like, maybe, who knows, maybe 20, 30 years from now, Pallbearer, maybe Forgotten Days, sells 5,000 copies a week like the Black Album. Maybe people are singing Rites of Passage over the radio. Who knows?
Yeah, man, I think that's gonna be our fate. It's, like, appreciated after we're long dead, That's the true way to do it. You gotta be dead to really make it.
You're not wrong there. That's the weird thing.
Like, the secret to success is to die.
Because I mean, like Kurt Cobain, Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, they're all worth far more dead than they ever were alive. Every one of them.
Yeah, by far. John Lennon.
Like,
yeah,
even earlier this year, when I can't remember. I believe his name was Pop Smoke. He's the rapper, and I never heard of him before he died, and then suddenly he died, and his songs were everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if he like, no disrespect to the guy, but if y'all loved him, how come I never heard of him before?
Man, there's so many new like pop and like rap like artists and stuff like popping up all the time. It seems like they'll be around for a minute and then just kind of like be replaced by a new wave of new up and coming people. I don't know, the pop world moves so quickly.
Oh, yeah. They don't even really focus on albums. It's just going from single to single, from song to song.
It's kind of strange, like being a band. Honestly, just I feel like it's like the entire. I mean, I listen to a lot of bands clearly, but it's so strange because it seems like the zeitgeist now is more focused around like producers and um, it's not really like an album based like listening paradigm. Like people just listen to singles. They'll like know like two songs from some artist and then they like disappear or get killed or something, and then it's replaced by somebody else, and the
Mm-hmm.
cycle repeats itself. It seems like longevity and like kind of long term memorability and staying power is not necessarily the focus anymore, except for like huge artists and stuff, Lady Gaga or something like that, Drake's, just like enormous cultural, you know,
Yeah, where everything they touch is like a cultural revolution of epic
yeah,
proportions. Like,
totally,
I still haven't seen A Star is Born, but I certainly hear about it.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
the Forgotten Days is now topping several Best of the Year lists as well. How does this make you feel?
Oh man, it's always nice to be recognized. It's certainly flattering. I guess it's we put a lot of work into our material, and so for people to publicly express their love for it and to get critical success is it's nice.
As far as the production of the album is concerned, was how different was it working with Nuclear Blast as opposed to Profound Lore?
No different really. On the production end of it, we just, I mean, I guess we had a little more money to spend on it, so we got to go to a nicer studio than we had in the past. But we also did it in like half the time. Um, we the biggest difference in the actual like production aspect was working with Randall Dunn because he's such a like experienced producer and in the realms of like heavy music and kind of experimental music and stuff. And we
Mm-hmm.
really we had done some like a short live run with him doing live sound for us some time ago. We really hit it off, and like we like a lot of the same kind of esoteric music and like art and stuff, and we really hit it off like personally. So it was really fun working with him. It was the first time we had ever really kind of listened to external input on any of our like arrangements and stuff, because it's we're very meticulous about our arrangements and our composition and stuff, but we trusted Randall and his taste and his like um, his judgment and his skills, experience. So it was interesting working with somebody um, outside of the band for some of the arrangement stuff. Like it was mostly pretty minor things, but he would have suggestions on like bring the drums back here or something, like instead of playing it on the snare, why don't you play like a tom part right here or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Simple things. Or he'd suggest like put a harmony on the guitar right here, um, which normally we would have never listened to anyone on the outside. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it was refreshing having like a third party to whom we trust their judgment and their taste to like kind of help with the production. So it was an interesting new experience.
He's a great producer too. He's done some really amazing stuff, not just with you guys, with Mirker, Marissa Nadler, Sun,
Uh,
tons of great records.
yeah, he's fantastic. He's got a great ear for like texture and stuff. He worked Did you ever see that movie Mandy?
Oh, with Nicolas Cage, yes?
Yeah, he worked with Johan Johansson on that soundtrack. So he did some of the synths on there, and I think did some of the mixing.
Oh, wow.
So
I didn't even know that.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
mean, the movie was amazing, but the soundtrack especially was fantastic.
oh yeah, pretty staggering. But he just did a record with the guy that plays like the cult leader in that movie.
Okay.
There's a whole story behind it. You should check it out. It's like the ideas that the cult like took over this music studio, basically like held the producer and his like wife. They like lived there and like held them hostage and forced them to make this record. And it's a fucking it's a mind bender for sure.
That sounds like a mind bender.
Yeah.
I mean, Mandy itself was quite a mind bender, so I guess I can't be too shocked.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like, I think that was the first movie I've ever seen or the first movie in a long time where they just said, you know what, Nicolas Cage is crazy. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Let him freak
Go
out.
The freak out in the bathroom, man. That was top tier Nick Cage.
Oh my god, that was Oscar worthy. That was incredible.
I know, it was a shame. He's people don't give Nick Cage enough credit, man. He's just kind of looked at as this like crazy guy, but he's actually kind of got a method to his madness.
Oh,
he's self-aware.
Absolutely. I mean, even when he is truly inarguably crazy, god damn is he entertaining.
It's entertaining. It's compelling insanity, man.
Like, I keep thinking of there was this movie, I think it was called Mom and Dad, but the whole idea is the one day the parents just like got hypnotized into wanting to kill their kids, and
it's like the crazies, right? But it just affects parents.
Yes, exactly. And he has this amazing monologue maybe about halfway through the movie, and I'm watching it with my girlfriend and some buddies, and we're eating popcorn, drinking beer, being dumb. And we're just like, holy crap, they just shoved an Oscar-worthy moment in the middle of this B-movie action flick.
That's what he does, man. Supposedly there's a movie coming out next year where he plays himself. Like, the premise is there's some, like, eccentric billionaire who flies, like, he's going to pay Nick Cage, like, $1 million to attend his birthday party in Mexico. And so he goes down there, but it's, like, not what it seems, and so apparently he gets in some shit and has to reenact his like most famous characters in order to get out of this situation.
That's amazing.
So I guess we already know where the Best Picture Academy Award is going next year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the Academy Awards, they normally eat up that kind of like movies about making movie stuff to begin with, but yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh my god, I want that now. I want that so bad. I was already pumped because I had heard he was gonna play the Tiger King or whatever, but that sounds way cooler.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, considering his like rate of output, we'll probably get like 8 new Nick Cage movies next year.
Oh, because he works like a horse. He's nonstop.
Yeah.
Like when he.
Gambling debts, I think, or something like that.
Something like that. I remember even when he showed up in the last Spider-Man movie as like the detective noir Spider-Man, and I just kind of went, oh my god. Like finally Nick Cage is a superhero. It's about damn time.
Well, he was in Kick-Ass, if you ever saw that. He plays like one of the characters in that movie.
Oh, that's true. He was Big Daddy?
Yeah, Big Daddy.
God, that was a weird movie too.
It was weird.
What are the chances of Pallbearer working with Nicolas Cage on a music video?
Man, nothing would make me happier. I mean, I feel like we're like so desperately like grasping for that because you know like Randall worked on Mandy, you know, and Nick Cage was in that movie, so it's like there's like 2 degrees of separation here.
There's that loose connection. You call Randy up and you go, "Hey, man, I need you to make a call."
Yeah. Give me Nick Cage's number, man.
You could have him freak out to like God, I'm trying to think of like a good song for him to freak out to.
Shit, I'll write a song for him to freak out to if he'll be in the video.
God, that's even better. That would be amazing. He can even sing, add vocals to it, like a weird, terrifying harmony of beautiful melodies and Nicolas Cage screaming.
Oh, I would have to just retire after that. There's nowhere to go.
That's it. I don't need a Grammy. I don't need to be in the Hall of Fame. I already did everything I needed to do.
My entire like goal as a musician has to been somehow to like work with Nicolas Cage. That's what I've been working on since I was a teenager.
Do you think if you tell him that he can be Superman, he'll just show up? You don't even have to pay him or anything?
I'll tell him, as long as, he can dress like Superman, I'll dress him as Clark or whatever he wants, Kal-El. You show up and he can do whatever he wants. I'll write a song about Superman. He can sing, he can play the role.
Now there's an idea.
You know? Yeah. Wouldn't that be something?
Take that, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go.
Yeah.
You've Pallbearer has embraced Patreon this year. How has this changed how Pallbearer operates and communicates with the fan base?
Well, it does give us a more like direct kind of like line to our, I guess, biggest fans. People who are willing to pay like a monthly subscription fee. So that's obviously people who are big fans. But it's really helpful for us. It's been really cool, man. Like, we've got like a Discord and stuff that people talk on, and we actually stay pretty busy producing stuff for the Patreon.
Oh, cool.
Because shit, we're not playing any shows, so
yeah, you got to do something to kill the time, I guess.
Yeah, we still I still work on like music constantly here. But it's harder to get together. As a full band, we haven't played since like February, just because Joe lives in New York and the rest of us live in Little Rock. So I haven't seen Joe since the beginning of the year. But Devin and Mark and I get together as much as we can. But it's just a lot harder with it's like we'll have practice scheduled and be like, oh, I was around somebody who ended up testing positive, or somebody was around somebody. There's always some shit going on where you have to reschedule. So it's been tough to get together, but we still try to do it. Like once a week, and then I work on music here at home a lot. So I think we're still doing everything we can to be productive.
On the note of new music, a month ago you mentioned that Pallbearer already had an album's worth of material ready to go. What are the chances that we'll get to hear some of this music soon?
I don't know. We've been discussing that. At this point we have like well over an album's worth of material.
Ooh, a double album, perhaps?
Say what?
A double album, perhaps?
Well, it really depends. Double albums are such a it's a big pill to swallow. I think double albums, most of them that I have heard, would have been better as a single album, like The Wall, Overlong. Cut half the songs, it would have been a great album, but it's an okay album. It's got some great songs on it, but it's also got a lot of just filler. And
that's fair.
The problem is so many of our songs are long. Obviously, Forgotten Days had some shorter songs, but several of these newer songs are once again quite long. So, and we've got many of them. So, whenever in order to assemble a track list, it's pretty tough because you put 4 songs on and you're already at 30 minutes or something or beyond. It's we have 15 songs, so which ones are we going to use? It's kind of tough.
Yeah, I guess because you don't want to have a 2-hour affair that goes on forever. Even if it was amazing. even if it was amazing, it would lose people's attention after a while.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. Like I wouldn't want to listen to 2 solid hours. It would just have, it has to be something like absolutely like life changing in order to keep my attention for 2 hours. I mean, I listen to a lot of like kind of like ambient music and stuff, or like freeform kind of electronic stuff here, and that can go on for hours and hours. But it's like it doesn't fully demand your attention. You can kind of go about your business and do other things, but I think our music requires like an active like listener, and I wouldn't want somebody to have to pay full attention to something for 2 hours. That's a big ask.
Mm-hmm. No, that's actually something I dread whenever an album comes my way. If I look at the runtime and it's like, oh, this thing's like 90 minutes or 120 minutes. That's kind of where
It's
I go.
a movie.
Yeah, at that point it's like, shit, I didn't realize this was like the Lord of the Rings or Avengers Endgame. Like, my God.
Yeah, some Peter Jackson.
It's like, that's a really good way to make sure that you get like a 0.5 taken off the final score right away for me when you have like a 2-3 hour affair.
Yeah, for real.
Like
Nobody's got time.
Like, I can't really, even with a band I love, like, when I was a kid, I loved Guns N' Roses, but I still, to this day, cannot sit through both parts of Use Your Illusion. I still can't do it.
No.
It's too much.
Yeah, I'm not even a Guns N' Roses fan, so that sounds like a hellish time.
It's an ordeal, especially because when you get to the second part of the album, it's like 90% really over-the-top power ballads, and it's like, oh my God, you're Guns N' Roses, just drink some booze and play some riffs.
Yeah, that was Axl's like hyper indulgent, wanting to be like Elton John phase.
Yeah, it was not a brilliant moment for sure. I don't know. It has fans. Guns N' Roses is still around, so they did something right.
There's some good songs. I mean, there's some okay songs on there. Like I say, I'm not a big Guns N' Roses fan in general, but they do have some classics, obviously.
If not a double album, would you consider like a series of EPs? Because I've seen some bands kind of try and do that. Like the Acacia Strain did that earlier this year, where they had a bunch of EPs that led up to a full-blown album, and it turned out to be a pretty big hit for them.
I think that's probably what we'll end up doing. We've actually already discussed doing an EP. Like that's probably what we'll like. We've talked about trying some different stuff, different like ways to potentially make the album, since just logistically recording is really kind of weird right now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I mean, it'd be a different story if Joe lived here, but I mean, if we were gonna travel somewhere, that's a whole big undertaking just in terms of safety, and all the stuff that comes in with being in a studio. Unless it's all inclusive, with people making food and stuff, you got to go out and get food every day. There's just so many chances to get exposed to, coronavirus. So we've talked about doing like individual songs, but I think probably what we'll do, there's a few songs that we have that are just kind of like a little weird and just wouldn't really fit into what the album seems to be. Our next album seems to be, and so we've thought, but we really like the songs, so we've thought about doing an EP of some of that stuff before we go all in and do another album.
That could be a good way to. That could be a good way to like test the waters and see what people are like willing to open their mind to. Like, all right, let's see how they respond to this weird electronic track. Let's see how they respond to this weird ambient track.
Totally, and we've kind of always used the EPs as like a chance to try out different stuff. And I think like amongst ourselves, we've had this idea that we would make some like weird, kind of more experimental EPs over time, but we haven't really explored it as much as I'd like to. And having had all this time off now, or like from the road, I think we've amassed a lot of material that would kind of work for that. So I think maybe we'll try to do that in the spring or something.
No, that would be really cool to see. I mean, I know a lot of other bands are working on material, even though they've just recently released albums. Bring Me the Horizon has released 2 EPs in the last year. They've got a bunch more on the way. Intronaut's writing a new album. There are still some bands that haven't even put out an album. Carcass, Enslaved, Megadeth, despite apparently sitting on material, have yet to release an album. So I think it'd be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, I'm excited about that new Carcass album. Yeah, that EP was pretty cool.
Oh, I loved it. I'm a Carcass fanboy, so maybe I'm biased, but I was just raging through that whole thing.
Yeah, they're great, man. It's been pretty exciting to see how awesome they've been since they got back together. You know, it could have been just like, because Swan Song was pretty meh. You know, I think that was like Bill Steer was wanting to do, I guess, what became Firebird. You could just tell his heart really wasn't in it.
Mm-hmm.
But they got back together. It's just been classic Carcass. But it doesn't sound like they're rehashing their old stuff. They're great.
No, it feels like it feels like a really comfortable spot between like necroticism and Heartwork, but it doesn't feel like a rehash of either of those records. It's especially with Surgical Steel. I felt there was like a lot of like thrash metal influence in there that really helped it stand out.
Yeah, great record.
On a similar note, Carcass again, not having put out an album yet. Was there ever a possibility that Forgotten Days might have been delayed?
It was delayed. Originally, it was going to come out like early in the summer.
Okay.
Because we had, that's prime, like especially in Europe and stuff. That's like prime touring time because they got all the metal fests and stuff over there. So we were gonna try to put it out, and I guess like early June or something like that. I think that was what we were shooting for, or late May. And whenever the actual lockdown happened in March, it caused just a delay by the nature of all the record plants, all the pressing plants closed and stuff. So there's no way to actually physically make the record. And then we were like, well, who knows? Maybe this stuff will be in control, or like maybe we can hit the road in like October or something. And then clearly nothing got under control at all. It's just still getting worse and worse all the time.
Oh yeah, it's. There was a point here in Ontario where we thought we had it under control, and we're learning now that we're not even close to having it under control.
Yeah, it sucks, man. If people would just I understand that people are ready for it to be done with, but by being impatient, they're just prolonging the misery that we're all having to deal with. Just and obviously, in the case of the U.S., it's completely, at least inept, if not actively malicious government.
That's a great word for it. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen so many leaders, state and federal, just abandon their people in time of need.
Oh, yeah.
On every level.
Right before you called, I got a notification on my phone that said that somebody or whatever is trying to push the GOP to include a $600 stimulus check in their next budget. It's whoop-de fucking dude,
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
That'll really help me pay my bills.
Yeah, for real. I mean, literally, there you go. There's a month's rent. Awesome.
A month's rent if you're lucky.
Well, it's a month's rent in Arkansas. That would probably just straight up cover my rent and bills here. It's very cheap to live in Arkansas. Practically anywhere else, though, it's probably not even that.
Oh, I'd feel bad for anyone who lives in San Francisco, the most expensive city to live in the world.
I can't imagine how anybody actually lives in San Francisco at this point without being either, I guess, living in rent control place or, being a millionaire.
Yeah, maybe they're all doctors and inventors and lawyers or something.
At this point.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Tech land, that's where all the tech bros and shit live. They make good money up there.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Pallbearer put out their first demo in 2010. How do you feel Pallbearer has evolved as a band in the last decade, and where do you see yourself going from here?
Man, I think we've become a lot more like comfortable, like playing with each other. I think um, we've always kind of had an adventurous like take on our style. I guess we want to like evolve constantly as a band, and we've I think found new ways, and we've like evolved as musicians over the last 10 years. I think that's inevitable. Um, so our goal is to just kind of always find new ways to express the like underlying kind of idea of what Pallbearer is, and not like retread too much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's something to be said for like understanding your appeal, I guess, as a band, and like knowing what your sound is. But we also just don't want to become one of those bands that just cranks out records that are all just kind of like by the numbers, because that's what, you know, it's time to make another record. We want our records to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our main goal as a band, is like keep being interesting.
I can't think of a lot of bands that make the same type of record that are consistently still really interesting. Like, I think Black Dahlia Murder comes to mind, Cannibal Corpse comes to mind, but that's about it. And I'm sure some people would even argue that they aren't, you know, at the level they may have been a few years ago or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's a limited shelf life whenever you kind of just start to repeat yourselves like that. I mean, some bands really pull it off. Like, I mean, obviously, I mean, they kind of changed. I mean, they have like small changes, but when you look at a band like Iron Maiden or something that has made a huge career out of making very similar records, you know, and it works for them because they
Mm-hmm.
got really good songwriting and everything. But yeah, I think for most bands, like you gotta evolve, or you're just gonna people are gonna get bored. You know, there's always gonna be a significant group of people who just want to hear like whatever band's like first record, or whatever the first record they heard from a band. You know, they want them to keep making that. You know,
Oh yeah,
but
that's what I think
that's
of with AC/DC nowadays. I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I've heard Let There Be Rock. I've heard Back in Black. Let's move on.
yes. I mean, supposedly that new one's good, but I haven't listened to it, and I just really don't care. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I've
I've
had I've
I've
had
heard it.
no ambition whatsoever. I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's a perfectly enjoyable piece of rock, just like every other album they've made for what 45 years now.
They're all solid, but
Yeah.
if you've heard, I mean, basically like after Back in Black, like just the first records, and then like Back in Black, and I just really don't care about anything they did after that, because it's just the same stuff over and over.
Yeah.
How many ways can you
Honestly,
combine CADG? You know,
there's only
just
so many
like
times you can hear that same riff, that same like vocal harmony over and over again. The and all that.
exactly.
But hey, I
I'd like to.
mean, they must be doing something right because they're packing stadiums and we aren't. So.
That's the thing. That's kind of the double-edged sword of trying to be like, progressive or whatever. Is like your average music listener, even in metal and stuff, wants to hear things that they're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do something that people don't expect, then it's automatically like a difficult ask for those people, for a lot of people. And most people don't really want to be challenged. They just want to enjoy music, or it's like, or TV or whatever. People have their entire lives going on, so I guess what interests musicians like us, which is being interesting to ourselves as composers, that doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone. But you can't like ever try to guess what people want. If you think people want something simple, they might not. People are like, well, this isn't cool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do something too weird, people are like, well, I don't get it, you know? So if you start trying to guess what, like, an audience wants, you're lost, you know?
Honestly, I mean, I've even kind of seen that play out in real time with I think Suicide Silence a great example. They got trashed for their self-titled record for going more of like a new metal, alt metal route. And then they went back to basics on the album that came out this year, and everyone's forgotten it. Everyone.
Yeah.
They did exactly what the fans wanted, and they forgot it.
You don't ever know. You don't know what they want. And that's the thing, too, like, you can't second guess yourself. You just got to kind of have to, like, double down because, you know, I think, and we kind of found that with Heartless, like, the initial response from a lot of people was like, what the fuck is this? This is like a little, you know, this is pretty different. But to us, it didn't seem that different. But as time has gone on, I think it's become a lot more, you know, like people have embraced it a lot more. But it's just, it takes time for people to come to terms with any sort of major, like, musical shift like that.
I think Heartless is probably my favorite record from y'all, if we're being honest. Like, I love that record.
I mean, we put a lot of work into all our stuff, and you know, I stand by all of it. And I just hope that other people, you know, I hope listeners will stick along for the ride as we, you know, try weird shit, try new things.
Hell yeah, get weirder. I'm a firm believer. I'm the type of person, the weirder the better as far as I'm concerned. Even if it isn't good, at least it's interesting. At least it's giving you something different.
Exactly, dude. I feel you. That's how. I mean, some of the most interesting records to me are when bands were just like, you know, they'll just do something completely bizarre. That maybe maybe the records aren't a complete success, but, like, you know, you can feel the excitement from the band. Like, it's fresh, you know. When bands try new things, it creates a special energy rather than just, like, you know, bands that are trying to recapture their glory days or something and trying to appeal to their, like, core audience. It's like, maybe that's safe, but, you know, it doesn't keep my attention as much, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I can think of tons of bands where it's just like, all right, here's an album that's just like the classic album, and I just kind of go, all right, good for you. But then they put out something weirder, and suddenly I'm super into it.
And the albums that are supposedly like the classic albums very rarely are.
No, not even close.
It doesn't have the inspiration that whenever what made the classic albums classic is that's what they were inspired to do. That's what they felt like making. But when you go back and it's like, well, let's make an album like our biggest hit. Let's go and try to redo that. It's like, well, it's not that. It's just like a lesser version of it.
Mm-hmm. There are some records, some moments in music history, not just in metal, in all of popular music, it's just lightning in a bottle, and it can't be recreated as much as you might try to.
Yeah, that's what makes classics, I guess.
And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a tiny ass rock band playing in your dad's garage or you're a mega pop or rock star. Like, I think of like Metallica, where they're pretty much just constantly trying to recapture the magic of Master of Puppets and the Black Album, and I'm just kind of like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Just move on, do something else.
I wish they'd. I mean, like, Saint Anger is not a great album, but it's a really interesting album. It's extremely flawed.
Definitely.
But it sounds like a band that was, like, experimenting, you know? Like, I wish they'd... Like, their last album was okay. Like, I saw them live, and they played a couple of the new songs live, and they were really good. They worked really well live. But I don't think that anybody was really, like, blown away by it. I'd honestly rather them do some, like, maybe not specifically that style, but, like, at least on, like, Load and Reload and shit like that, they were trying something new.
You could tell on those albums you could tell on those albums they were so excited about what they were playing too.
Yeah, and that makes them more fun to listen to. I mean, they're silly. Like, there's a lot of goofy shit on those albums,
but there's nothing wrong with that.
Devil's
fun.
Dance stands out as a really goofy moment to me. Just like, I don't know how I feel about Metallica trying to make like a really Alice in Chains kind of grungy song that's also kind of sexy, and it has like a really weird hook to it. It's, I don't know, it doesn't work, but I admire the experiment, even if it didn't
Absolutely.
pan out. And I mean, I've even defended Lulu on the Metal Meltdown, where I'm like, hey, it didn't pan out, but name one other metal band that's out there making records with Lou Reed. Name one.
I love Lulu. Not that it's a great
Ooh.
album. It's a very... I mean, there's literally nothing else out there like it. It's a completely unique album, and I like Lou Reed a lot. So, yeah, I think it's... I mean, there's literally no... How many records can you say there's nothing else out there like it, you know?
No,
Lulu is
nothing.
definitely... And, you know, it's a partially failed experiment, and a lot of people would say it's a completely failed experiment, but it's really interesting, so...
I'm
I don't know,
pretty
props
sure
to them.
everyone... I'm pretty sure everyone who will comment on this video will tell us it's a failed experiment. But none of them will be able to argue that it isn't an incredibly unique, one-of-a-kind record.
True. Very true.
I got one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. What continues to inspire you emotionally as a songwriter and as a musician?
Honestly, just like living life, you know. We are all, you know, I think we all, as a band, like we all listen to kind of like a pretty wide range of music, and I think we're inspired by a lot of music that falls outside of like what we play, the kind of stuff that we create, and I think that it subtly influences how we compose and like the kind of things that we end up trying to incorporate into our own style.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still so much ground that we haven't covered. I think there's, you know, a virtually infinite number of things that we could try as a band, and you know, probably have some failed experiments too, but hopefully they'll be mostly successful.
Perhaps.
You know, it's music. Making music is just exciting, and it's fun. It's challenging, and you know, we like to, you know, we enjoy playing music together, and we like to share it with people. So I think that you know, what we do in the future is pretty wide open. There's all kinds of new things to try, and there's no telling if we're still around in 10 years. Like, there's no telling what we'll be making then.
Perhaps
hopefully it's like Lulu. It's like Lulu, but with Nicolas Cage.
You beat me to it. I was literally about to say, perhaps a Lulu-esque avant-garde metal record with Nicolas Cage.
That would be my dream.
We're gonna make that happen. Start crowdfunding that on Patreon.
Yes.
The
I'm gonna do a GoFundMe for that.
That's gonna be like the Tiger King Into the Spider-Verse Mandy membership package, where you start reaching out to Nicolas Cage.
Oh my god, that's a great idea.
Man, look, like we said before, it's been proven that he will do anything for $1, so I could actually picture him making a metal album.
Hey, let's do it. I mean, his son, I know, some years back was in like a black metal band.
Oh my god, that's right. I wonder if his son is as insane as his dad.
I hope so.
You know what? Maybe that's what you do. You call him and you go, hey, let's make a black metal record, and maybe if your dad's interested, maybe he'd like to show up in the studio and say hi, and then you kind of trick him into being on one of the songs.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way you do it. Well,
yeah.
It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Brett, but I have to go, unfortunately.
That's all right, man. It's been a pleasure as well. Hope you have a good one, man. Stay safe. Try to stay away from the Ronas.
I will do the best I can. No promises.
Yeah, same here. All right, man. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Brett Campbell, lead singer and guitarist for Pallbearer. Hope you enjoyed our conversation. I hope you go bug him about the prospect of making an avant-garde black metal record with Nicolas Cage and his son. And as always, I hope you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.